walls. We're breaking free. Yeah, we're breaking free. No more oppression. It's out for liberty. Breaking free. Yeah, we're taking a stand. Freedom's in our hearts. We're reclaiming our land. They try to silence us, but we won't be tamed. Voices getting louder, can't keep us in chains. We got the power, we got the might. Together we can shine, together we can fight. Feel the rhythm in your feet, it's time to stand tall. Raise your voice and shout, we're breaking down the walls. We're breaking free, yeah, we're breaking free. No more oppression, it's out for liberty. Breaking free, yeah, we're taking a stand. Freedom's in our hearts, we're reclaiming our land. They try to silence us, but we won't be tamed. Voices getting louder, can't keep us in chains. We got the power, we got the might. Together we can shine, together we can fight. Feel the rhythm in your feet, it's time to stand tall. Raise your voice and shout, we're breaking down the walls. We're breaking free, yeah, we're breaking free. No more oppression, it's out for liberty. Breaking free, yeah, we're taking a stand. Freedom's in our hearts, we're reclaiming our land. We're claiming our land.
I hate this show. Oh my goodness.
Welcome, everybody, to Are You Smarter Than a Politician? This is the political cage match where bold solutions win and bad ideas get wrecked. Tonight on Are You Smarter Than a Politician? Washington keeps causing crises and calling it leadership. The debt is exploding, agencies are growing, and your freedom is shrinking. So every solution out of DC seems to make the problem worse. So tonight we're taking that head on. Joining us are three prominent members of the Libertarian Party, voices who argue that free individuals and strong communities can outperform federal power every single time. So we're asking, do real solutions come from DC or from Americans who are ready to live free and fix things themselves? Let's find out right now on Are You Smarter Than a Politician? Joining us again, a third time, the chair of the Libertarian Party, Stephen Nekhalia. You can follow him on X at Stephen Nekhalia. How are you tonight, Steve?
Good. I'm here. Free Whistle and Diesel. He did nothing wrong. And I'm glad to be back for the third time on the show. So thanks for having me. And one of the reasons I'm here is because Terry said she'd be really mean to Hody John this week if I'm on. Sorry, Hody. So I had to hop on. But happy to be on, guys.
Thanks for doing this. Joining us for a second time, the vice chair of the Libertarian Party, Paul Darr. He's also a candidate for Texas LP chair, and you can follow him on X at Paul_Darr. How are you tonight, Paul?
Quick correction there, vice chair for Texas LP actually is what I'm going to be running for there. Thank you very much. I'm having a great evening tonight and glad to be here on the show that is pretty okay.
Thank you for that lively and loving endorsement of the show, Paul. We appreciate it. And joining us for the first time tonight, Pat Ford. He is the chair of the LNC convention. Easy for me to say. He's also on the oversight committee, and he is the founder of Libertarian Mutual Aid, which is at libertarianmutualaid.org. And you can find him on X at Poe Taxpayer. Pat, how are you tonight?
Magical, and I'll differ with Mr. Darr to get things started. This is actually a seminal life experience for me right now.
Wow, all these glowing endorsements, and there's only so much room in the intro next to Tubbs' endorsement, so we're going to have to pick and choose which one we want to use. So, and joining us as always, the lovely Terry Batts. How are you tonight, Terry?
I'm doing great. This is going to be epic. I can tell right now. Well, this is just going to be wild. And that's okay, you guys. Bring it on. And I'll try to keep up with the chat. I will keep up with the score, but I don't know about the chat part.
All right. And you can follow Terry and I on X. I am Freedom for Us for All. She is Bats T76. You can get our merch at freedomsuperstore.com. And tonight is sponsored by Xano. If you're tired of surveillance coins dressed up as freedom tech, Xano is the real deal. open source, enterprise grade privacy, scalable and secure, build, spend, and tokenize any asset without the peeping eyes. Xano isn't just private, it's none of their business. And if you're new to this space, they have a great website for you. Visit intro.xano.org to learn how Xano gives you the power to own your own data, your money, and your assets, all in one simple, secure platform built for real world freedom. And that website again is intro.xano.org. Appreciate you, Xano. And I want to thank our subscribers. Terry pays to be here, which is bizarre. Amity is on here. Ocean Blue, check out her artwork. Cheryl Lee joins us from across the pond every show. Dr. Belay and Lisa Belay. Dan's on here. Chris Casey, who hosts the They Both Suck podcast. Dave Krantz, who just ran a great race in Virginia. Jake Day, Phil Rain, Jacob Winograd, and Brent Freeman, who is at Anarcho. Now I forgot it again, but he's at Anarcho SCC on Twitter. So, and you can subscribe to us for exclusive content, a bunch of other stuff. And also, I wanted to make this quick announcement, a fitting time to announce this. We're going on the road in 2026. We are doing 4 live state conventions, and we're also doing the Libertarian National Convention, and you can be there. So if you want to meet up with us, meet fellow freedom lovers, watch the show live, and see people put to the test, you can join us. And if you want real change, join your state party, become a delegate, and help shape the national convention. Don't just talk about liberty, live it, and also come see us live and prove that you're smarter than a politician. Really looking forward to that. We'll be in Georgia in January, Florida in February, North Carolina in March, Texas in April, and then last but not least, for sure, the national convention in May. So appreciate you guys having us there. That'll be a lot of fun. Awesome. But that was the reaction I was expecting right there.
No, maybe we can actually guarantee people will show up for the convention by you being on the main stage.
That would
I
be
just
awesome.
want to see how many people leave the convention to go out and party in the hallways after your show is over.
we had a lively crowd in Florida, so it would probably be something similar. So, but it'll be a good time. Appreciate you guys having us there. So, all right, let's jump into the chat and see who's here real quick. And Rude's here. What's up, Rude? There's Jake. There's Shirley. Casey wants us to bring Tub back. 100 points for the first to get Paul mad and want to flip his desk again. Yeah, that did happen last time. I think he jumped up on a chair. Amity's got 200 to Pat for such a glowing endorsement of the show. Minus 200 to Paul for thinking the show is only okay. 200 to Steven for shouting out my friend Hody. Susan's here. What's up, Susan? Happy free day. Thanks, Chris. Hey, everybody from Chris. Ray's here. What's up, Ray? And 100 to Steven for saying free whistling diesel. Excellent. All right. So let's jump into it here. Please share this out. Help bust the algorithm. Let's get a bunch of people to see these fine gentlemen on here tonight. The winner would get the virtual Ron Paul holding the Ron Paul trophy. We have Mike Johnson's signature cologne Swamp Ass, as well as the Ayn Rand Fountainhead teddy bear. A new prize is the Trump random tariff generator. How this works is you pull his arm to generate a tariff, and he pulls it out of his ass and crashes the stock market. We have the home edition of Are You Smarter Than a Politician if you want to annoy your friends and neighbors. We have the Ron Paul and the Murray Rothbard bobbleheads. And of course, we have the Lego Killdozer, because nobody talks about the Killdozer more than me and Casey. Here's how it works. The rules are, I am the government. Whatever I say goes. Scoring errors count. Life isn't fair. Suck it up, Buttercup. Nobody cares. The rules are the contestants can debate each other. They can veto each other's answers. They can tariff each other's answers, redistribute answers. And of course, they start off with negative 500 points because the government gets paid first. Here's how scoring works. The chat controls the score. So you can give or take up to 100 points from contestants. Little subscriber bonus, they can give or take up to 200 points because, you know, crony capitalism, they get favors from me. The scores can be nuked. So any former contestant can nuke a score, taking it down by 1,000 points. A contestant can only be nuked one time. All right, I'm going to put Terry back into the control room here. She handles the chat and the scoring. Make her life difficult. Thanks, Terry. All right, first question to you, Steve. Category is tariffs and taxes. Are tariffs just a hidden tax on every American who buys anything imported?
The answer to that is yes. Tariffs are taxes that Americans pay. When you buy something, it's the importer who pays. Sometimes exporters will try to reduce their prices to be able to compete. But ultimately, what happens when you tariff goods is you incentivize companies that are inefficient, that have bad products. It's protectionism at work. If you can't buy a Samsung dryer because it costs more, maybe you buy the one from GE. Is it a better product? It's up to the market. But when the government gets involved, then they use tariffs to change price signals, and it just makes everybody more confused. Ultimately, in a time when everybody is paying a lot more for products, it would be nice to be able to pay less for food and for goods and services. But of course, the government needs their cut. So when Trump goes around saying that there's record-breaking revenue from tariffs, just remember they're talking about taxes. And we should never celebrate the government making money on taxes. They don't need it. I'd like to keep my money. So tariffs are not a net benefit for the American citizen. And we end up paying the upfront cost one way or the other. So that's where we're at with tariffs.
Excellent. All right, Paul, to you. Should Washington be allowed to punish consumers to protect failing industries?
Well, pretty much that goes right into what Stephen was saying there, that Washington, through the tariffs, was also sending false signals there. And so by punishing different industries, Washington is further distorting industry there, and should not be participating in the market at all. We have this crony capitalism, and there's the aspects where they give to their friends, and there's aspects where they punish others out there. And we're seeing a lot of punishing going on in areas, and then scratching of backs when those individuals give back to others to avoid that punishment out there. So Washington should get out of the market, let the free market act naturally, and allow the consumer to decide what they want, and not punish different marketers out there.
All right. Pat, to you. Do tariffs hurt small businesses more than foreign governments?
Absolutely. But first, let me say that there are several items that are probably going to come up tonight that I think present libertarians with their single greatest political opportunity since COVID. And tariffs are one of them, because they prove once and for all that Republicans aren't believers in the free market. They're literally cock blocking the liberty movement for us. Am I allowed to use words like that here? You got to tell me.
Yeah. You can't say blocking, but you can say cock. That's fine.
Okay. So, we've watched for a generation now as Republicans claim to be the party of free markets. This should prove conclusively once and for all that they're not. And we need to attack them on that. We can no longer consider them really our quote unquote allies, that somehow Republicans are allowed to get away with crap. And so in that respect, we need to jump on the on this right now. To your point, they absolutely crush small businesses. I see it firsthand. I was at a restaurant tonight. It's a Laotian restaurant, great food, small businessman, and he's talking about how tariffs are impacting some of the really high-level ingredients that he's exporting through the port of Los Angeles. That kind of stuff. I mean, we're talking about a 3-person Laotian restaurant in the hills of Rhode Island are feeling it already. They crush small businesses. Tariffs need to die.
Excellent. Stephen, back to you. The category is national debt. Does the Federal Reserve bear the primary responsibility for the nation's debt issues?
So since 1913, the value of the dollar has decreased about 99%. Since the Bretton Woods Agreement, the U.S. has become the reserve currency of the world and has basically given the U.S. government carte to print money. And since the gold standard, there has been a decoupling of gold and dollars. So we have fiat, which means that anything the government needs, they can just print money for. You want to go fund a war, print the money. You want to fund healthcare, print the money. Ultimately, it just means people have to work harder. And their savings are devalued, and of course, asset prices go through the roof. So not only does the Federal Reserve the main source of the U.S. debt because it enables Congress to borrow money, but it also allows the banks to print money. So when money is created out of thin air through the Federal Reserve's borrowing window, essentially to the member banks, then they get to go out, make loans, and that also increases inflation. So the M2 money supply increases no matter what. Ultimately, it increases inflation, but also allows the debt to increase. And like a bunch of drunken sailors, that infinite debt that we're going through right now, $38 trillion, just gets to go to a quintillion dollars, or there really is no end. It's just a matter of how long are people going to take the currency seriously. So the only solution is to end the Federal Reserve, go back to sound money policy, the gold standard, and I would even go as far as making sure there's no legal tender laws in the United States, meaning cryptocurrencies and other competing currencies can compete in the market. And hopefully we'll never see debt like this again if libertarians can have anything to say about it.
Excellent. Paul, to you. Is adding trillions to the debt a failure of leadership, no matter who does it?
You're asking a libertarian if adding trillions to the debt is a failure of whoever does it. Of course it is. It's a failure of whoever does it, no matter who does it. We should not be adding to the debt at any time. Unfortunately, that's kind of become the thing both parties do out there, and they're just going to keep adding trillions and trillions of debt. It's just how fast they accelerate those additions to the debt. And it's all their faults, because they could pull the brakes at any time. They could do some real work. They could, they don't even have to go full take things down. If they even just started to slow things down, that would have been beautiful. But we're at a point that it's going to be hurting hard as they have to pull things back and make those tough choices, make those decisions, and we get to where we need to be and stopping the debt.
Excellent. We're 5 questions in. The chat's already turned on me, so we're off to a great start here. All right, Pat, to you. Is it reckless to increase spending while borrowing from future generations?
It's homicidal. We are, as a culture, I don't know whether it's patricide, fratricide, we're literally killing our generations in the future. Between the debt, between the blatant desire of government to end private ownership of property, and particularly real estate, and all the techniques that they're using, not the least of which is most recently Mr. Mandami's insane desire to put rent control back on the city, despite the fact that in my lifetime, it had already failed once and it had already destroyed the property base. So absolutely, we are handing, I should say, future generations a giant turd. Got to stop.
All right. Stephen, back to you. Categories: military spending. Should America ever have $1 trillion defense budget in peacetime?
Should America have $1 trillion defense budget in peacetime? Well, I don't think we really have a defense budget. It's really a war budget, primarily. You can see what's happening in Venezuela right now. The billions of dollars going overseas to support NATO, to support Ukraine, Taiwan, South Korea, all these other countries, all these military bases around the world, and money given to supposed military allies and ties that we have. These military operations haven't ceased. They haven't ceased under the so-called peace president. Donald Trump said he wanted to, on day one, end the war in Ukraine with a single phone call. I don't think the U.S. has actually really been at peace for most of its existence. So we've been from conflict to conflict for nearly our entire existence. I think maybe a few decades where we've really been at peace. So I don't believe that we need $1 trillion defense budget. I think the Department of War, the DOD or DOW, they failed every audit they've been given for the past 20-something years. We don't know where the black budget money goes. Ultimately, I think the cost for taxpayers should be a lot less for true national defense. And when you get rid of companies like Halliburton and other contractors that charge an arm and a leg for shipping a few screws to Afghanistan, or a coffee pot for $2,000 or whatever the case is, you start to save some serious dough. So the most fiscal conservative thing we can do, it will also worrying about our national defense, actually focusing about real national security and not enriching the military industrial complex while making America and the world less safe. So the answer is absolutely yes. It should be a lot less than $1 trillion.
All right. Paul, to you. Is endless military expansion compatible with claiming America first?
No, it is not. And I want to talk about how Stephen mentioned the Department of War there. Department of War, I was in favor of calling it Department of War, and but that people should think that it's the cause of war that we're going out there and doing that, and that should be a shameful thing. And me seeing them so like happy about it being the Department of War and wanting to go out and do war, I can't believe this is the world we're living in right now. That that's where they want to go out and do, and thinking that sending $1 million missile to go blow up $1,000 hut or to blow up a boat out there is worth our taxpayer money and worth the death toll that we're causing to people across the world. That is not America first.
All right. Pat, to you. Should the majority of foreign bases be closed?
No, every foreign base should be closed. The question right now before us as Americans, and particularly libertarians, is whether or not do we tie somehow this false fake economy, this artificially inflated economy, to defense spending. The second question is, what the hell do we do about it? And I will tell you, I've testified now in 3 states on Defend the Guard. And as a result, 2 of the 3, the Adjutant General of the National Guard was there. And they fought us tooth and nail. We kicked their asses, but we fought us tooth and nail. And the remarks coming back, particularly in Rhode Island, from legislators, they were shocked at the lack of concern that was evidence for young men and women and the overwhelming concern for budgets, because that's what this is all about. It's about the money. What's one of the best and worst T-shirts of all time? Can you at least tell me which oil company I'm going to die for? Right? So what do we do as libertarians? We get right behind Defend the Guard, because Defend the Guard on so many levels, it's humanitarian, but it's anti-authoritarian. And at the same time, it chips away at a vital cog in the military industrial complex with this notion that we can have endless police actions. If you have less people available to go to the police actions, you have less police actions. We got to get on it.
All right. Stephen, to you. Categories: mass deportations. Does mass deportation solve anything long term?
Does mass deportation solve anything long term? Well, number one, I'm not sure if it's really feasible. Regardless of whether or not I think it's right, I don't think it's right. I think that the people that are here, that are providing value, that are working jobs, that are there should be a pathway to citizenship that makes sense. And I like to say it's easier to cross the Rio Grande than climb Mount Bureaucracy. The reason we have so much illegal immigration is because the legal system is so in need of reform that neither of the mainstream parties is able to grapple with that issue, and they're not interested in grappling with that issue. So every 4 years we bounce back between border security and border chaos while never truly striking out the root of the problem. And there's many people that I think would fit into our society very well. I know many Cubans that come from socialist or communist Cuba to the Florida Keys and to Miami that hate communism, that live great productive lives. The Irish back in the day, the Italians, the Germans, they were all looked down upon. They weren't mass deported, but they came here legally, and I think we see the same undertows today of a different type of desire for mass deportations. But I think ultimately, no, I don't think they solve the underlying issues. The underlying issue is we need immigration reform. Immigration needs to make sense. There needs to be pathways to green cards and citizenship, and we should end the welfare state as well as making sure that people can come here legally that are able to do so. But also, I think a part of the undertow of issues with the immigration system is destabilization. So what's going on right now, or potentially going to happen right now in Venezuela, is there could be a war that could destabilize the region. When you have destabilization, you have a refugee crisis. Where do they go from there? Well, they go to surrounding states, and maybe they come to the United States. It's what happened in the Middle East with Europe, and it's a complex issue, but I think libertarians understand it well. Mass deportations don't fix the underlying issues, and quite frankly, we do rely on a lot of the labor here for a lot of the jobs that need to be filled. So, and those people end up becoming, in a couple generations, middle-class Americans, if the data is correct. So I don't think the supposed issues are going to be solved with mass deportation. I think it's just a Band-Aid or an aspirational cover-up to ignore the underlying roots of the actual problem, which is the broken immigration system.
All right. Paul, to you. Should military-style raids ever be used on nonviolent people?
No, of course they should not. We should not be militarizing our police out there. And if that's what I'm understanding this question to be towards, we have all those surplus items that have gone out to police. And, we have the Bill of Rights to defend us against a standing army operating within our country. But that is helpless when we just make the police into a standing army that can raid us at any time. And under horrific circumstances, when there's like a wrong address, they show up, they might kill a person, they might maim a baby. Those things that happen that shouldn't be happening. Every time I like to watch YouTube, and sometimes there are a few channels that show things about that. And every time I have to stop, take a pause on some of those videos there, just because I get so mad and want to just punch my TV there. And for the sake of my own TV, I have to stop it for a moment there and come back to it. But we should not be, we should not militarize the police. They should not be conducting those raids. We should have greater protections.
All right. Pat, to you. Do mass roundups create more chaos than safety?
Absolutely. They're basically high-speed car chases on steroids. Mass roundups have been proven to be indiscriminate, arbitrary, capricious. And I'm going to challenge libertarians because, number one, we have an organization called ICE, which is rapidly being transformed into a domestic police force right before our eyes. And there's a law called Posse Comitatus, and it's been around for a while. And the whole notion is to prevent the growth of domestic military forces. When those military forces, and they are national police, they are evolving into a national police, wear masks in order to create terror, and at the same time are completely indiscriminate. That needs to end now. It's not even a question of how many, we're all treated to the anecdotes of how many quote unquote legitimate Americans, were caught up in these. No, the question should be, in what manner are we using the force of the United States military, supported by the forceful taxation of the American people, to enforce economic dictates that are completely in opposition to everything that libertarians stand for, which is the freedom to travel, the freedom to engage in peaceful economic activity. That's all been thrown out the window. And what's startling is how quickly we are descending into a state police system for real. This isn't, the conspiracy theorists. These are the conspiracy realists. We're watching it before our eyes, and I have to ask my fellow libertarians, what are you going to do about it?
All right. Stephen, to you. Legal immigration pathways is the category. Should legal immigration be easier than illegal immigration?
Absolutely. For many people, it's almost just as difficult. When the Cubans come over to the United States, and and they risk their lives, and many of them they don't make it. There really is no legal pathway for them, mostly because of the Cuban government. But people risk their lives to come into this country because there is it is that much harder legally. For many people, there is no legal pathway. You could be on the list for years, decades, may or may never come in and if you're Western European, maybe you get a better chance of coming in, or if you're Canadian or something like that. It really depends. there's no clear pathway to citizenship, and for many people, it's just not it's not something that's available to them. Since about the 80s, the system really changed. It became a lot harder. For most of American history, it was fairly simple. Most of our grandparents, great grandparents, came through Ellis Island at one point. It was pretty easy to come in back then. So I do think it should be easier to come in than it is the illegal way, and I think that will take a lot of the business away from the people that are involved in human trafficking and smuggling, and bring things back into the legal realm, just like everything else when it's easier to be legal and more transparent. So yes, it should be easier.
All right. Paul, to you. Should more work visas be created to match economic demand?
Yes, definitely. There should be more work visas to meet the economic demand out there. There's great demand for work visas out there. There are, there's so many ways that we can improve the economy in the U.S. Through offering more visas out there. Currently, people pay billions of dollars to sneak into the U.S. just for the opportunity we have here and to be able to have the opportunity to work here. We could be having them have a pathway of legally being able to work with work visas in the U.S. and to be able to participate with in the economy here. And we can partake in getting that money even. We suck so much at the process that we're willing to let others have all of that and bear some of the costs there ourselves. We should definitely allow more people to come in for work visas, and the market will correct for that as we do it.
Excellent. Pat, to you. Is restricting legal pathways just asking for more border chaos?
Well, first of all, let me just respond to the prior question. I don't believe in work visas. If I want to hire someone and they have no criminal record, then I should be able to hire them. I don't know why I need some sort of permission from the government to hire the best and brightest. Listen, one of the great, if you will, exports in American economy is our educational system. Until we started screwing with it a couple of years ago, it gives us an incredible technological advantage because we have people coming to the United States to go to school, coming to people to the United States. The technology, the tech, the human services, the entire economic spectrum is increased exponentially because until recently, we were seen as a place to go. And the whole notion that we used to do it the right way. I hear from Republicans all the time. We need to do it the right way, just like my grandparents did it. And newsflash, if your grandparents showed up at Ellis Island like mine did, as long as they didn't have body parts falling off and they had some bull bleep letter from somebody saying they were going to take care of them, they were let in. And it actually worked out pretty okay. Oh, that's right. Because in the run up to World War II, we became the world's largest manufacturing economy. And that's one of the reasons why we won World War II. And a big part of that was immigrants. So, but you asked me another question. I don't even remember what question you asked me. I'm sorry.
Is restricting legal pathways just asking for more border chaos?
Absolutely. I had the opportunity during the first Trump administration to travel with a few libertarians down to Deming, New Mexico, which is a border town. And that week, then President Trump shut the border to folks who were there as refugees. And I saw firsthand what a border town looks like when it's operating normally. And believe it or not, it's a lot more transparent and easygoing and free-flowing than people think. The people in Deming, New Mexico, Mexican children come to Deming, New Mexico public schools for their education. Bet you a lot of people didn't know that. So then we create these closures. And folks need to understand you cannot legislate or criminalize individual behavior and expect nothing but chaos. We've seen that in prohibition. We've seen that in the war on drugs. We've seen that in the war on sex work. And we're shocked when you throw these virtual environments into chaos, that there is more chaos. So there's an old saying, I have seen the enemy and he is us. And border chaos is exactly what it does. Because you know what? As some guy in DC says, the bad hombres are still getting through. But what you're restricting is a whole lot of people. The people I met coming over the border, and I met a couple dozen of them in just a few days. The people coming over the border, by and large, are peaceful, by and large, are seeking a better life. And often are well educated. So we need to get past the cliches and the violence of cliches and actually search for freedom.
All right. That'll bring us to our first score break. If you've not entered your scores in the chat, please do so now. There is a lot going on in the chat. Papa Beep reposted. Everybody, please repost. Thank you for doing that. 100 to Steve for the funny smelling cigar that makes people giggle a lot. Minus 500 to me. No provision for mutually assured destruction. 100 to Pat for the 50-year-old divorced guy on a dating app camera angle. 100 to Steven. Got the bunker mode.
Wait a minute, it's a swingers party, not a dating game. Okay.
Oh boy. 200 points to Steve and 200 to Paul for the record number of libertarian wins. Hasn't happened under previous leadership. 100%. Great job, guys. 200 to Stephen for explaining how tariffs are not only taxes, but they distort market signals. 100 to Steve. I like to keep his money too. 100 to Stephen, but it's a stock answer. A big Texas howdy from William. 200 to Paul for being a former LCI guest. 100 to Paul for the act naturally. With Stephen, Paul, and Pat on the show right now, who is running the LP? I would guess Joe Hanush, but he's here too. So 100 to Paul for having bookshelf doors that Trump and Bill Clinton were hanging out in there. Oh boy. 100 to Terry. She's overworked. Pay her more free or she will unionize. 200 to Pat for calling out tariffs and pitching strategy. Go Ducks, not go Ducks. 200 to Pat for rightly stating Republicans are not actually advocates of free markets, socialists. In 100 to Paul, I like that Elmer's glue is oozing out of his cabinets. Minus 200 for me asking better questions this stream than one I was on. Yeah, I told you they turned on me. 100 to Stephen for cronyism 101. 100 to Paul, his green screen is my childhood home. 100 to Stephen, his background is my high school locker room. 100 to Steve for understanding why I can't pay him back for all those skiing lessons. Hashtag inflation. 100 to Paul. We think it's a failure, but they're too big to fail. Minus 1 to Stephen for the Larry Sharp answers. Short and sweet wins the game. Where there's going to be no short and sweet tonight. 100 to the first contestant to mention the historic victory by Libertarian Ryan Woodcraft. 100 to Pat for passing on turds. We used to get coal, but this works. 100 to Paul. Paul is correct. Our debt is killing future generations. And for giant turd in the sentence. 100 to Stephen for the war budget. Minus 50 to Steve. Just call it defense and say no. 100 to Steve for the worst Christmas lights I've ever seen. 200 to Stephen for mentioning the failure of our peace president. 200 to Stephen for rightly calling out Trump for failing to deliver on his promises to end the wars. Minus 50 to Steve for calling it the Department of War. Congress didn't change the name. 100 to Stephen, conflict to conflict. We don't need $1 trillion DOD or DOW budget. 50 to Stephen, it's more accurate name for what it does. 100 to Paul for going against calling it the Department of War. 100 to Paul, yes, Department of War is a shameful thing. 50 to Paul, war is shameful and only breeds more war. 100 to Stephen for the shout out for Darth Cheney's Galactic Empire. Rest in something. 200 to Paul, blowing up people is not America first. 200 to Pat, every foreign base should be closed. 100 to Paul, yes, every foreign base should be closed. Defend the guard, he is right. 100 to Pat for mentioning defend the guard. 100 to Pat for which oil company am I going to die for. 100 to Paul, close them all, fire, fire, fire. Minus 100 to Steve for the no answer. 200 to Paul, based answers on bases. 200 to Paul for wanting them to own their shit, re the Department of War. 100 to Stephen, service guarantees, citizenship. Would you like to know more? 100 to Stephen, like the term Mount Bureaucracy. Pat, quit playing with turds. Here's 150 points to buy some Fiat tissues. 200 to Stephen, mass deportation is not right. It's easier to cross the Rio Grande than climb Mount Bureaucracy. Yes, let's solve the immigration problem. Points to Steve for reminding me that free needs a wrap it up box. Maybe we can get that Sandman guy from Showtime at the Apollo. 100 to Stephen, mass deportations will not fix any underlying issues. Points to Paul for wanting a sitting army. Points to Paul for no boot militarization. Points for actually saying passe comitatus. Points to Pat for capricious. Points to Pat for a good answer. Points to Stephen, no legal pathway for some immigrants. This needs to change. Points to Stephen from an Ellis Island libertarian. Points to Steve for doing all that math in the Hangover movie. Minus 1,000 to Trump for effing up the economy. 34 to Pat for using the word capricious and now making Free try to pronounce it when he reads this. I did it twice. 72 to Pat for forgetting the question. Sick rant. All right. I can't believe I just read all those. All right, let's jump to the scoreboard and see what is happening there. Steve in the lead, 27.99. Paul, 27.50. It's a close race with Pat at 26.90. Pat, what do you think so far? First time on the show.
Listen, popping my cherry here is just excellent. I'm again, life affirming experience.
Excellent. Paul, second place. What are you thinking?
I'm just laughing at what Pat was just saying there. That's yeah. I'm feeling pretty good tonight. It's fun again once again to be here. It's a pretty all right show once again.
Yeah, thank you. It's all right to have you as well. Steven, you're in first place. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I've been leading before. I don't remember if I've actually won one of these yet. So we'll see what happens.
We're really bad at remembering who won. That's one of the features of our show. But now that you guys are winning, maybe we got to start keeping track of who's winning on here. Used to be it didn't matter who won. Now it matters. All right. Jump back into it. Steven, back to you. Category is executive orders and power creep. Should any president issue over 100 executive orders before Congress meets?
The short answer is no. The long answer is Congress has become a cheerleading squad for the executive branch. Really, Congress doesn't do a whole lot except screw things up and make more restrictions and pass big bloated budgets. I can't think of the last time the Congress has declared war. I think the military involvement in, I think it was either Iraq or Afghanistan at some point, was potentially authorized, but that was, I think, limited. So Congress is really just for show. The president does whatever the president wants, and the consolidation of power is imbalancing the supposed checks and balances that were supposed to be put on our government. And quite frankly, the 10th Amendment makes 99% of what Congress is doing invalid anyway. So we're far away from constitutional limits and checks and balances on the state. So yeah, the executive branch should be brought to heel, and quite frankly, so should Congress as well.
All right. Paul, to you. Has the presidency become too powerful for a free society?
Yes, it has. The presidency was never meant to be as powerful as it is. As Stephen was just talking about the power creep that has gone on over years through executive orders. It has gone on through other things as Congress has abdicated its job to the presidency there. And every time that when somebody's not in power, they'll scream about it. As soon as they get in power, it's like it's the one ring and they just want to hold on to it and think that they can use that power for good for themselves. And then ultimately, we already know they were corrupt when they went in there to begin with.
All right. Pat, to you. Should Congress be able to veto executive orders with a simple vote?
I'd actually like to eliminate executive orders. So, you know, the kabuki dance, is that a good example that goes on when different members of Congress try to try to veto legislation is bad enough. If we want to bring this nation to a complete halt in governmental sense, well, you know what? Actually, I like that. So maybe we should. Maybe if they can veto, I'm thinking out this out loud. If they can veto the executive orders, we'll have the kind of governmental societal breakdown that we were just starting to see in the last couple of weeks. So hell, bring it on. You know, it's all performative anyway, isn't it? So yeah, sure, why not?
And I'm going to give you 100 points for not doing the kabuki dance for us here live. So thank you for that.
No, we'll have that. We'll have interpretive dance later.
Okay.
Right.
Steven, to you, the category is militarized policing. Should American police have military grade gear?
Well, military grade is an interesting term because it doesn't really mean a whole lot. Just means the lowest bidder. But I think whether or not the police should be LARPing around as the military while policing, I think the answer is no. There's very few situations where The police should be walking around armed to the teeth or engaged in operations that are that require a high level of force, and those should be extremely limited, if at all. I think we need to bring back community policing, and in the sense of working with communities and not, quite frankly, I think one of the biggest detriments to community relationships with police is bad laws. When you get rid of all the bad laws, there's not much left you can really argue with. If police are just going after murderers and thieves and violent criminals, and they're not going after the granny smoking weed, or a cop on a motorcycle is not pulling somebody over for not wearing a seatbelt, and you get rid of all the victimless crimes, then community policing and relationships with police become possible. And there's a lot less room for error, especially when there's a drug bust, it's in the wrong house, or even if it's in the right house, innocent people get killed and hurt, that should be allowed to do what they want to do. So the short answer is very, very limited, and it really depends. But largely, no. We have an over-policing problem in a sense of an over-militarization of the police. There's really no reason that my old alma mater, FIU, needed an MRAP when I was in college. So it's definitely an issue, and they really shouldn't have this equipment 99% of the time.
All right. Paul, to you. Does militarizing police escalate everyday encounters?
Especially when they do so in the wrong way. So but they're giving them all the equipment and none of the training. So they're giving them equipment to more effectively be able to kill other people, and none of the training how to de-escalate to the level that they need to. There's people that do de-escalation training out there, hardly done at all. On the military side, when you give a military unit, you have a high-end unit that's supposed to do something, and they'll spend 10, 20% of their time just training and practicing and getting good before they go out and do something. So in that case, if you applied that principle over to the police force, they should be practicing, part of their time every week on how to do de-escalation and to avoid using that gear out there. So by giving them all the toys, none of the training, of course, you're setting up a recipe for horrible things to happen. But on the note, you mentioned military grade before. One thing that is against me, I am an Army veteran, so I did serve in the military at one point, and military grade normally means piece of shit, just so you know, for any future reference to anyone else out there.
Yeah, Woodcraft tries to get me to stop using that term, but I keep going back to it, mainly just to aggravate him. But yeah. So Pat, to you.
It triggers us all. Yeah.
Pat, should no-knock raids be banned nationwide?
Absolutely. And by the way, just to reflect on the prior question, I recently heard a police officer, and I do a lot of protests. I like to joke that in my day job as an independent reporter, I go to some of the best riots in America. And I heard him refer to his gear as battle rattle. And that shows you the frame of mind in modern big city policing. But by the way, all of this equipment is largely beneficiaries of the drug war, as well as some of the war in the Middle East. So it's when I hear that, it throws police into this sort of roid rage moment when there's civil unrest. So the notion that they've got this bigly equipment, Chairman Nekhalia was referring to MRAPs, it's completely out of place. Completely out of place. We have a National Guard that if there's large scale civil distress that has to happen, just another bigly no. There you go.
All right. Stephen, to you. Category is National Guard federalization. Should the president control state National Guard units without consent?
I think the National Guard has become the president's private military force. I think that's cause for concern. When the president says they want to basically, and I'm paraphrasing here, but they want to go into American cities to test out tactics or whatever he said when that Hegseth's speech, it's cause for concern. People join the National Guard to protect their communities, to protect their states and their country. And when they're shuttled around playing private police for the president or sent overseas, shout out to Defend the Guard for passing legislation in many states that requires that Congress passes a declaration of war for the National Guard to be deployed. It kind of defeats the whole purpose of a National Guard. The National Guard is sent out to disaster zones. It's sent out to secure life, liberty, and property when needed. But when we act like they're a secondary police force or a military force that can be deployed domestically, it opens up a huge can of worms. So the short answer is no, they should not. And quite frankly, they should be brought back to the primary duty of the National Guard, which is to protect life, liberty, and property for the communities closest to those serving.
All right. Paul, to you. Does federalizing state troops undermine state sovereignty?
Without the ability of the state to also agree with doing that, there are instances where allowing them to work in other states would be fine, in disaster recovery and sharing of abilities, helping others. But nationalizing them to go participate in police actions in many ways when they should not be is undermining the sovereignty of those states. Yeah.
All right. Pat, to you. Is domestic troop deployment always a sign of federal overreach?
Well, first of all, I just got to go back to another prior question. Are you telling me states actually have sovereignty? I thought that went out. I thought that ship sailed a long time ago. Federal deployment of troops. Again, posse comitatus. There should be no interference with domestic law enforcement by federalizing troops. I mean, that's simply against the law. There is no place for it whatsoever at any time. And again, the slippery slope, bad cliche, right? But the slippery slope that was happening is now just a generic avalanche against fundamental civil liberties that were unthinkable 5 or 10 years ago. Just simply unthinkable. The notion of, and I understand DC is a special case, but the notion that any types of troops would be roaming the streets of Los Angeles unless there was an actual weather emergency or civil disobedience at a large scale is just patently ridiculous. So, yeah, it's again, the question is, what are libertarians going to do about it?
Got it. Stephen, back to you. Category is medical and consumer regulation. Is a national autism registry an invasion of privacy?
Oh boy, the National Tylenol Registry. Yeah, it's it's kind of a weird thing that they. Is that real? Is that something
real.
they're really
That's
going
real.
through with?
This is an RFK thing.
Crazy. Yeah, I don't really see the point in a national autism registry. That's a little strange. I don't think there should be any centralized registry of any whether it's mental illness or anything else, because then you get into the area where the government could obviously use that against you. It could be used in regards to insurance. It could be used in regards to the way you're treated. Although I would want that list. It could be good recruitment grounds for the Libertarian Party. So if they're selling it, it might be.
My God.
All right,
I'm going to beat the table.
I think I should get 100 points for the most libertarian question I've ever asked. So, all right.
Oh my!
Paul,
Libertarians don't want to be registered,
that's true. Paul, to you. Should the government dictate what foods adults may buy?
No, they should not at all. Adults should be able to choose what they choose to consume on any level. That is part of being sovereign over your own body, that you have the choice to choose what is right for you, what you want to consume, what you don't want to consume. You have the choice to either buy or not buy whatever you want for yourself. And it's your duty to educate yourself and to make those decisions for yourself.
All right. Pat, to you. Is federal health micromanagement ever justified?
See, I got to go back to the prior question. The word registry should be eliminated or be strictly verboten. be ever uttered by a libertarian. I just got to say that the word registry or any of its derivations have no place. Yeah. All right, run the other question by, because I hear some of these questions and they're great, and my mind explodes with the opportunity to attack government. So what was I supposed to answer?
Yeah, you're doing the Larry Sharp where you answer all the questions.
Right.
Is federal health micromanagement ever justified?
No, hell no. Number one, because federal government is incapable of accomplishing virtually anything. So why would I want them involved in any level in healthcare at all, for that matter? It's just, it simply has no place. The notion that some, tin pot apparatchik would have any engagement whatsoever in my personal life, hell no.
All right. Stephen, back to you. Category is centralized economic planning. Does centralized economic planning ever work?
No, it really doesn't. It definitely doesn't work for the individual. That's for sure. It may work for the state temporarily. Central economic planning didn't work very well for the Soviet Union. It doesn't work for Cuba. It doesn't work for the United States. It doesn't work when the U.S. is buying businesses like NVIDIA stocks and shares. It just sends false signals throughout the economy. It mislocates resources, and it typically props up industries that benefit the state. It is something that doesn't work. The free market does everything more effectively. Quite frankly, there's a reason why public-private partnerships are so popular. It's because the free market does things better. If we could imagine if the government opened grocery stores, I guess New York is going to find out, or grew the food. We see what happens when the government provides education. That's, quite frankly, central planning of education. So whenever the government takes over an industry or allocates resources to a certain industry, whether it's a certain agricultural crops like soy or corn, ethanol, there's a reason why corn syrup is in everything. It's because it's cheap. It causes second and third order effects that are undesirable, and it creates odd incentives for the market. So central planning is not a good thing. Let the market decide most efficiently and best for the consumer and for the business.
Excellent. Paul, to you. Should Washington pick economic winners and losers?
Kind of envious of some of the other questions everybody else is getting. These ones are a little simple sometimes when I get it. Should they pick economic winners and losers? No, they should not. In worst case, they're either punishing their enemies many times when they're doing that, or they're outright bribing people. Much like the Trump tariff giving back, picking winners in that way is just a wealth redistribution going on there. When they're doing it with tariffs, that's just punishing and doing market distortions over there. And when they do it in all the many ways that they do, that's just they're picking their winners and losers, distorting the market. And causing issues all around that they don't need to be involved in.
Just real quick, if you want the good question, stop running for vice chair. That's my recommendation there. Just kidding. All right, Pat, to you.
I want to give
Oh my God. Should taxpayer money subsidize private corporations? You got an hour? All right, I'm going to use a real world example here.
Keep in mind it's lightning round.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. No, absolutely no. The AAA minor league affiliate of the Boston Red Sox twice attempted to build stadiums in Rhode Island using that magic term, private-public partnership, and using a 9-figure taxpayer subsidy. We libertarians in Rhode Island beat it back twice. Using that same formula, it was moved to Worcester, Massachusetts, where the government caved into all the lying promises. The city of Worcester now is averaging close to $1 million a year in out-of-budget expenditures to pay for the stadium bonds that were issued that were never going to cost taxpayer money a dime. It creates, again, winners and losers. Number two, you've actually got taxpayers subsidizing their competition, a long story. Number three, it's an economic nightmare on some of the most fundamental economic principles that most of us learned if we weren't too drunk in freshman economics. So the question is no.
All right. Stephen, to you. Oh, nope. We're at the scores again. So enter your scores in the chat, and the chat is hopping. So 100 to Steve for short answer, but yes, the police should not be militarized. Points to Paul when your only tool is a hammer. 100 points to Paul, the Eagle Scout from another Eagle Scout Ray. Points to Darr for the military grade definition. Points to Paul for advertising Touch of Gray from Just for Men, #capitalism. Points to Pat, he's right, police are too militarized. Points to Pat for reminding me I need to do more push-ups. There's a good number of people that want to kick my ass in Grand Rapids. I got your back, brother. Points to Steven, the guard works for us. Minus 50 to Steven, too many words, but plus 55 to Steven because it was still correct answer. So that's a net gain of 5 there. Points to Pat, states have sovereignty, great sarcastic question. 20 to Pat for the elephant noises in the background, or is that just my headphones? Points to Pat for the troop answer. Points to Pat for patently ridiculous. I see what you did there, Sarabella. Points to Pat for camouflaging the curtains into the wall. Points to Stephen, no centralized registries. Look, weaponized autism needs common sense reforms like registry, minus 100 to Stephen. Points to Pat, his comedy is rough around the edges. I'm enjoying it. Imagine him on during the Halloween special. Oh, the fireworks. Did any of you guys see the Halloween special? It was insane. So I got to check that out. Points to Steve for making the autistic connection. Points to Steve for asking for the list. Points to Stephen for using the autism registry list for LP recruitment. Points to Paul, packs a bowl. Stephen, $100, no list. 100 to Paul for personal responsibility. Points to Paul for having the only background that doesn't look like a single guy in his 20s decorated. Points to Paul, adults should be able to consume what they want without government regulation. Minus 100 from Stevenson, not knowing about another list we can all be put on by the feds. Minus 10 to Pat, land the plane, Larry. Points to Pat for acknowledging Free's mind-exploding questions. Points to Pat, keep politicians out of medical treatment. Points to Pat, correct, no registry. Points to Stephen, how many shares of NVIDIA do I get for my tax dollars? I'll take a video card, but minus 100 to Stephen, central planning doesn't work, yet he still sees the need for a federal government, #agorism. Points to Stephen, soy and corn are poisoned by government subsidies. Points to Stephen, Pat, this episode's brought to you by Sherman-Williams Off-White Paint. Minus 200 to Paul for complaining about the questions. I saw that coming. Minus 100 to Pat for saying Red Sox. Points to Pat, you got an hour. No, it's the lightning round. Priceless censorship by the government. Points to Pat, no subsidies. Points to Pat for drunken teens. Minus 100 to Pat for not understanding lightning round. Medical registries are HIPAA violations. 200 to Steve for acknowledging that all registries are nefarious. And then 100 to Pat, calls this out for being drunk during freshman economics. Oh, the chat is excellent. All right. Wow, we got a little flipperoo here. And Pat has taken the lead, 5150. Steve, 5,004. And then Paul at 4815. All right, I'm going to keep it moving here. Stephen, back to you. This is brought to you by Xano, our sponsor tonight. Check out intro.xano.org for more information. The category is sound money. Should America return to sound money principles?
Absolutely. I mean, I think if we can, there's only 2 options, I think, left right now. And, well, 3 really. One is the federal government prints our dollar past zero. We essentially inflate our way through the debt crisis, which will never end. Option B is the U.S. government defaults on the debt and moves us to a central bank digital currency, which is extremely frightening. Option C is we return to sound money, a gold or silver-backed currency, or even a crypto currency. But quite frankly, I would prefer we simply get rid of legal tender laws completely and get the government out of the business. They can't be trusted with our money, and we need to find ways to get back to standards that the free market truly believes in. But a gold standard would be a lot better than what we have. The government shouldn't be able to go past whatever the value of the currency is. Of course, Congress can set that rate under the Constitution, so I still don't trust them. And again, I think that's where cryptocurrencies and good old gold and silver comes into play.
All right, Paul, you. Does the lack of a stable currency erode freedom?
there's a topic that a lot of people don't think about of economic freedom that comes with having a stable currency there. Having currency that is currently under inflation means that you have to keep chasing as that inflation goes on. So that is the hamster wheel we get put on by the government, inflating our currency on and on and on. So yes, having a stable currency does bring us more freedom, and having it in a market that gives us the correct signals that would be able to enable us to have a stable currency.
All right, Pat, to you. Is printing money a silent tax on all Americans?
Economic assassination. Literally, we are destroying future generations' ability to have freedom in the sense of any level of economic freedom. Listen, in my day job, I interviewed a guy named David Cicilline, who was a former Democratic congressman, and he was promoting the Inflation Reduction Act. Everybody remember that? I want to find all those economists that they said were pimping for it. That's what I want to find. We printed ourselves into oblivion. You know, one of the numbers that's no longer talked about is the percentage of GDP that is actually geared and actually being paid out in the form of interest payments. You know, we're well past that tipping point. My friends tell me, once we lose the ability to own private property because it's been inflated out from under us, we're doomed.
All right. Back to you, Steve. Category is cryptocurrency policy. Is a central bank digital currency, CBDC, a threat to financial privacy?
You will own nothing and you will be happy. That is where the current financial system is heading. Not only through inflation, but the move towards CBDCs. We see it already in China with their social credit score, and they've essentially come up with a digital ID, which we're quite frankly coming up with here in the United States. The Apple ID is something that is already been announced about a month ago and is already in place. In a lot of places, it can be used at TSA. We're heading in that direction, whether it's public or private, unfortunately. And in China as well, they have a digital currency, and you pay through your smartphone. People who get a low credit score, a social credit score, they can't do certain things. They can't travel. They can't get certain jobs. They can't go to certain places. And I'm sure Palantir has our own profile on us. So I view CBDCs as a sort of mark of the beast type system. Once the government controls the currency, it's digital. You can't buy or sell things without the state knowing. You're in deep trouble. When they know what you're buying, when they know what you're consuming, who you're interacting with, it only goes downhill from there. So CBDCs are a huge threat to liberty. They should be fought at every turn. And to the agorists in the audience, we should be looking at other ways of transacting that we can do without the state and without them knowing what we're up to.
Maybe Xano. See what I did there? Yeah. Paul, to you. Should crypto users face enhanced surveillance? Oh, he's going to flip the desk. Here it comes.
There's nobody to really argue with there on that. So should crypto users face enhanced surveillance? No, they should not. I was trying to wrap my mind about what you're trying to ask there. So yes, crypto users should be free to use crypto without worrying about being further tracked by any government agency out there and trying to go after them in any way. That is just the way that they go after individuals there. And somebody was just asking me, saying that in one of the chats, asking, why do I look like I'm in a hostage video over here as I look over and around? Who's controlling me over here? Well, I have like 4 monitors up here. I look like a 90s hacker or something over here with my setup. So when I'm looking around, I'm looking at all the different monitors where you guys are chatting on and all that. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, we need different angles of you, so that would be good. All right, Pat, to you. Should Americans freely use decentralized digital money?
Yes. And by the way, shameless self-promotion here. Xano is a wonderful organization, big supporter of theirs, and Libertarian Mutual Aid accepts contributions in Xano. So right on our website. I would argue at this point that we should actually move away as libertarians from printed currency, fiat currency, exclusively into organizations like Zano. And because one of the biggest conspiracies I think of government in terms of not even just centralized digital currency, but the whole notion that that this is somehow an investment. It's not an investment. It was originally designed, in my humble opinion, to be a method of transaction. And the government has perverted this, and media has perverted this into a central investment. No. And as a result, older Americans look at this and say, but it fluctuates in value, not understanding that our currency fluctuates in value. So not only should they move to it, we need to eliminate fiat currency. Thank you.
All right. Got some feedback coming from Steve there, I think. Something weird going on. All right. Steve, to you. Category is congressional blockage. Should mass surveillance be allowed in America?
Yeah, sorry about that. I think there was a scooter going by with like no muffler. So I don't know why they're so loud. Should mass surveillance be allowed in America? No, we should be fighting the surveillance state at every corner we can. A lot was exposed in the last decade or so under Snowden about the surveillance state, and we can be assured it's only gotten worse from here. They've hired Palantir as their private Minority Report style company to get data on all Americans, and the government knows what you're buying. They look at your credit card statements. They know when you're buying guns and ammo. They know where you're traveling to, who you're transacting with, and they also read all your messages. And they have your emails. They have your texts. They there's backdoors into the Intel chips on your computer, into the BIOS, into just everything you own that's electronic. It's a pretty scary state of things. So the government is deeply entrenched in the surveillance state. We don't talk about it quite enough, and they abuse that quite regularly. Spying on ex-girlfriends and things like that has been shown. So who knows what they're up to? We definitely don't trust the government to be spying on us, and they've lied about it time and time again. It needs to stop, and we need to gut the Leviathan that is the surveillance state.
All right, Paul, to you. Should FISA be repealed?
I'm going to be succinct. Yes.
That's
it. Just
all
yes.
Right. Yeah. You don't want to check another monitor to make sure?
No.
All right. Pat, to you. Should Americans be monitored without a warrant?
Hell. And by the way, we're already being monitored without a warrant. Folks, libertarians, you're going to hear in your community, if you haven't already heard about it, an organization called Flock Cameras. Now, these are not your traditional, all right, we're going to pretend you ran a red. No, these are actually scanning license plates and setting a central database to see if there's any criminality, to engage in a very early version of future crimes, right? So I had the opportunity to interview one of the early communities in America that was adopting these. And listen, you've never given a police department a tool that they won't say yes to, if it's at all invasive. So, of course, the cops are all behind it. They already agreed to do the test. And I asked the flock camera people, well, where are you storing this? In the cloud. And all the policemen said, oh, that's great. That's safe. Yeah, okay. Now, we have a lot of smart people in the Libertarian Party, particularly when it comes to tech. Does anyone actually believe that storing personal data like that in the cloud is safe and private? Hell no.
All right. Steve, back to you. Category is cannabis reform. Should cannabis or hemp be classified like a narcotic?
When cocaine is classified as a Schedule II substance, and cannabis, even still today with medical marijuana licensing and proven track record in helping people, is still scheduled as a number one substance. I mean, the war on drugs has been going on for over 50 years. Newsflash, the drugs won. You're not going to end the drug trade by bombing ships near Venezuela or even going after the cartels kinetically. You have to legalize the drugs and let society choose its own social norms, just like we did with alcohol. There's going to be consequences, but there's going to be consequences either way. I think drug overdoses in the millennial generation is almost, I think it's like number 2 or number 3 under cancer, and so obviously the drug war is not working. we need to treat people better. We need to stop treating drug addiction as a crime that kind of gets pushed under the rug and turned the other way. It needs to be looked at as a medical issue. If we're actually going to help people, what's going on right now isn't working. And with cannabis, you're a lot more likely to die by alcohol or a user of alcohol getting behind the wheel. You're a lot more likely to die for smoking these or smoking cigarettes. And so it's a personal decision. It's not a narcotic in the sense that, of other classified drugs, get it off the drug schedule, legalize and decriminalize all substances, let people make their own decisions, and let adults choose what they want to do with their bodies.
All right. Paul, to you. Should states decide cannabis policy without federal influence or interference?
Yes, they should, or they should be allowed to grow cannabis any way they want there, without federal interference. States that are currently choosing to grow cannabis for different uses and still having the threat of federal interference at different levels hampers the industry there. There are beyond just some of the medicinal uses for cannabis out there. There are many industrial uses for hemp that's out there, and that gets drawn right in with it. The industrial hemp has many different uses, and we only recently got to start exploring into things like hempcrete and different amazing uses that we can have for this product that's renewable and can be grown and can be used out there. And by all these draconian policies across the U.S., we are holding ourselves back. We should allow our industries to use this product and to find the best uses for medicine freely out there, to find the best uses for personal use for those that choose to do so, and the best industrial uses out there that aren't limited by the government out there.
All right. Pat, to you. Does criminalizing cannabis do more harm than good?
I'll answer that with a broad statement. First of all, legal drugs are safe drugs. It really is that simple. I do a lot of work in the homeless environment. I see firsthand on a daily basis the opioid crisis. But ultimately, anytime you criminalize, and we saw that 100 years ago in Prohibition. Why is this a shock? So if you simply end the war on drugs, it's the equivalent of, well, this is old school, right? Going back into the, if you were in school, you break the glass and hit the hammer, it instantly makes the world a better place. You avert a large-scale public health crisis by diminishing the use of fentanyl, because drugs are going to have to compete on a free market for the quality and safety of drugs like any other consumer product. You take an incredible pressure off the immigration issue, because you'll have far less people immigrating from Latin and Central America because they're fleeing narco-terrorism. But by the way, the United States is effectively offshored the production of drugs during the alcohol prohibition period. We did our things in stills in the mountains and in the backwoods and in big cities. What we've done with drugs is we pushed all the production, all the violence of black markets down to Central and Latin America. Good job. And the only reason we don't feel that is because it's far away. And then we've got these terrible people coming up who are fleeing the direct results of our action. So legal drugs are safe drugs, and all laws on drugs. And by definition, then you end the DEA. And then by definition, you end scheduling. And we're a happier world.
All right. Steve, back to you. The category is protectionism. Should Buy American rules override affordability?
Should Buy America rules override affordability? Well, that was tried during the Great Depression with the Blue Chip Act. Americans were encouraged to buy American products. It did not get us out of the Great Depression. Should we buy American? Well, the answer is should really be decided by the market. If you want to buy a Ford versus a Toyota, that should be up to you. If American brands want to compete, they should have to compete in the free market. I think that customers or businesses need to earn customers' trust. I know a lot of people would like to buy American to support American businesses and brands, just like buying locally. And the only way to make these products better is to let them compete. I buy Ford. I also have a Toyota. Does that mean one's better than the other? In some ways, yeah, the Toyota is more reliable than the Ford. Ford needs to step it up when it comes to reliability. It all comes down to the American manufacturing base. Again, that goes back to deregulation, lowering corporate taxes, making labor more affordable. There's a reason why a lot of the manufacturing plants are in Mexico or in other places, even though they're technically American products. They're full of foreign parts because they're cheaper. And in some cases, they're better. So when you're buying an American product, are you really buying American, or are you just buying an American company's product that's really made overseas and assembled here? The iPhone that I have is not made in the United States. It's designed in California and made in China. So when it comes to buying American, it's kind of a concept that is sort of nebulous. But if we want to really support American businesses and manufacturers and workers, we need to start lowering the barriers of entry. We need to start lowering the tax structure. We have some of the highest corporate taxes in the world. We need to stabilize the currency and make doing business in America more attractive. And that is how we support the American businesses and manufacturing base, not by trying to coerce consumers into buying American products.
All right. Paul, to you. Do protectionist rules raise costs for every household?
Yes, of course it's going to, because you're doing protectionism for a product and trying to prop up that product and choose it over whatever the market is actually choosing for that household. People should be, once again, free to choose in the market what they want to purchase, what they want to use for services, how they choose, without protectionism causing that artificial signal in there and raising prices for those individuals there.
All right. Pat, to you. Should the government ever restrict purchasing choices?
Well, first of all, I would be remiss if I didn't respond to dear leader Nekhalia's intemperate remarks about the Ford Motor Company. Having sold Ford trucks for just under 20 years, I will simply say two things. Number one, try plowing or towing with a Toyota. And number two, Wendy's has really got to get its shit together on French fries. Okay. As far as restricting choices, no. Consistently over human history, the market defines what is a successful disruption of the market, encourages a successful disruption of the market, which is where innovation comes from, as well as lower price and competition. Get the government the hell out of the way. Government doesn't create jobs. Government doesn't create an economy. And listen, we've seen in the last couple of weeks just what good the government does for the service sector, a la SNAP. So, no, get the hell out of the way.
I would like to veto Mr. Ford's answer on the French fries, but I will tariff his answer on the Ford. I do love my Raptor. It is a badass truck. I don't think anyone makes anything like it.
Okay, thank you. Apology accepted.
That's fair. All right. Steve, to you. Category is Patriot Act and domestic spying. Should the Patriot Act be repealed?
Yes, absolutely. The Patriot Act should absolutely be repealed. The fact that they call it the Patriot Act, it is the most unconstitutional, unpatriotic act ever passed by Congress. I'm from the 9/11 generation. I was young when the Twin Towers were hit, and the post 9/11 world is a completely different world. Pre 9/11 America is very different, and quite frankly, the Patriot Act has paved the way for so many draconian policies, domestic spying, spending. The National Defense Authorization Act was another bill that needs to die on the heels of the global war on terror and government overreach. So yes, one of the first things that should happen is the Patriot Act should be repealed. Absolutely. That it needs to become a focal point of libertarian domestic policy, if it's not already, which I'm pretty sure it is.
All right. Paul, to you. Should Americans demand warrants for all digital searches?
Just because there is a digital world out there doesn't mean our rights suddenly disappear just because it is digital. We should have warrants and protections in that same digital world that we have in the regular physical world, that everything transfers over to that area. So yes, there should be warrants for those things. And to just add off of what Stephen was just talking about, since that's one of those things that I talk about like every holiday out there like Veterans Memorial Day type things as a veteran. There is still the 1957 AUMF that's out there, 1991 AUMF that's out there, 2001 AUMF, and the 2002 AUMF for the authorization for military forces out there that need to be repealed. So there's 4 AUMFs that out there that need to be repealed immediately.
All right. Pat, to you. Is privacy a right, not a privilege?
I'll say this. First of all, I constantly have to remark on the prior questions. And by the way, the little trivia here on 2 levels. The controlled opposition party, otherwise known as the Republican Party, were the ones who brought us the Patriot Act and the word homeland. Homeland is another word that needs to be banned, by the way. I personally believe, although it's not a constitutional guarantee, and by the way, I'm post-constitutional. For the record, I believe in natural rights. The Constitution is a nice document. It can help you out in court sometimes, apparently not so much anymore. Too many of the statists rely on a piece of paper for permission to honor their own rights. I do believe personal privacy is a right that you're born with, just like the right to bear arms.
All right. Steve, to you. Category is occupational licensing. Does licensing trap people in poverty? You're muted.
Whoops. Does licensing trap people in poverty? It definitely can. Licensing, in many instances, you need to spend more hours learning to become a barber or learning how to braid hair and getting a license for it than you do to become a police officer. And not only that, but there's occupational licensing fees that need to be paid before you can get into a business. So really, these are just barriers to entry. And that goes for many industries. If you're able to do the work, you should be able to do it. You shouldn't need to get a license to do it. I know down here in my county, we're fighting licensing restrictions because we can't bring outside help from certain places, or vice versa. We have to get state licensing for certain things for occupations, and all it does is dwindle the pool of available labor and businesses to get things done. If someone can do the job, let them do it. The government shouldn't be involved in occupational licensing. It's not something. It's just another tax. It's taking a right away from you and saying that we own the product of your labor, and we need to make sure that you know how to do it. We need you to pay a certain tax and go through a certain program in order for the crown to be satisfied enough for you to be able to do something that you voluntarily agreed with somebody that you can do. So it's just another government tax. It's taking it right away and giving it back to you. Occupational licensing should be divorced from the state. There should not be. It should not exist.
All right. Paul, to you. Should jobs require expensive government permission?
Expensive government. So in many ways, that's just another way of asking about licensing there, along with other expensive regulation hurdles that are out there. So as Stephen was talking, I was thinking of one example locally here as I was talking to a food truck owner out here. And so the food truck owner had to get a license from our county out here, and he had to get a license from the city, so that if he's operating in either area or in the city where it's overlapping area, he could be stopped by either group and fined for not having that government permission for being able to work out there. So yeah, that we should not have that expensive licensing. And once again, that is a tax, and we should not have to have that government permission to operate in different areas. That's once again another way that we're picking winners and losers and having an impact on the free market.
All right. Pat, to you. Should more trades be open to anyone with skills?
Absolutely. Like I said, I do some journalistic work, and I go to a lot of town meetings, and I was stunned as I started going to literally 2 or 3 town meetings a week across Rhode Island, as to the level of control the government has to whether or not you can operate a business, own a business, the hours of the business, When it comes to the trades, the licensing that is involved is the same type of obscenity. The free market will do a much better job, and all these different review sites will do a much better job of telling me whether someone is capable of doing work than the arcane world of government licensing. It's a moment in time, typically just associated with collecting a fee. We need to open up the trades. Again, I sold commercial trucks. I sold to tradesmen for 20 years, high quality Ford trucks. Okay. Utility trucks, box trucks, dump trucks, you name it. And ultimately, what got them past that first 6 months was whether or not they could do the work and get referrals. Let tech and all the different ways that tech can shine viewpoints on different industries, different markets, different professions, let that do it. Not some, because how many times have people had construction licenses that you know about your life that were complete screw-ups and then ended up dodging it and refiling under different company names? Happens all the time.
All right. We're nearing the end here. Appreciate everybody that's sharing it out. We're about to hit 10,000 live views here, which is really cool. Let's go, Stephen, back to you. Category is criminal justice. Should judges have full discretion in sentencing?
Because
Sorry, I had you muted there. My fault.
I think that's a very interesting question. I think ultimately, yes, judges should have discretion minimums. There are situations where there are mandatory minimums for cases that aren't deserving. So if you do get a charge, let's say for a short-barreled rifle, or whatever the case is, there's mandatory minimums tied to that that's baked into the law. It should be up to the judge's discretion to decide. That's the job of a judge. I also think that judges should be chosen based on their ability to actually deal with crime. So if you have a case like the instances in North Carolina, in Charlotte, where you have a violent criminal and they're not being prosecuted for the 30th time until they finally commit a crime that catches national attention, the judges should be beholden to the people. They should take their job seriously. And the goal of the law in a libertarian philosophical frame is to protect life, liberty, and property. So if the legal system is working and it's just, then it is effectively doing that. If it is not, then it's failing to do that. But when you're over persecuting people or prosecuting people for nonviolent crimes, that is an issue that I think having mandatory minimums, number one, in the current law, it causes problems. But number two, the law shouldn't be prosecuting people that are nonviolent criminals. That's just a first step in solving the problem. But it should be at the discretion of the judge to decide the appropriate level of punishment for a crime.
All right. Paul, to you. Does tough on crime theater fail to reduce crime?
Yes, and it doesn't treat the underlying cause of what those crimes are caused by. So oftentimes it is due to government failures, where government is trying to shape a local economy in some way and failing to do so. So people have lack of choices, and they choose to go to crime as a way to solve their economic problems that are out there. Doing a theater over it, sure, that plays well in the news for the base, for that tough on crime base, but does it really lower crime in any meaningful long-term way? No, it does not.
All right. Pat, to you. Is the death penalty outdated?
Absolutely. It should never have existed in the first place. It simply doesn't work on a practical level, given the often countless dollars that are spent on appeals. It's the government, a government that literally can't build a bridge, shouldn't be entrusted with a life over death issue. We have prisons to incarcerate people. We have civilized ways to approach this. I have not invested the government. I refuse to invest the government with the right over life and death. It just, it has no place in America right now. It never did.
I agree. Like 20-something% in Florida have been overturned. So shows they can't do their job. So All right, Stephen, to you. 3 questions left. The category is regulatory explosion. Are Americans overregulated?
We're overtaxed, overregulated, and I mean, there's more laws in the books than people can count. I think if you took the entire U.S. code, and it's a giant stack of books. There's more laws being passed by Congress every single day. Americans are swimming in regulations. We're a far cry from what the founding fathers have intended. We're a far cry from where we were even 100 years ago. The amount of regulations makes it difficult to do business. It makes it difficult to even be a law-abiding citizen because no one knows what the law is, and half the time we don't agree with it, so we end up breaking the law anyway because there's just too many restrictions, too many regulations, and it just makes doing anything in this country more difficult. And we need to get serious about deregulation in all areas of life. It's about time.
All right. Paul, to you. Should Congress review every regulation before it takes effect?
So they're passing bills that are impossible to read before they're passed. You know, I remember watching Mosh talk about that and trying to print out and read through all those bills when he was in Congress there, and it is amazing that these people have no clue what they're signing their name to for these different regulations that are out there. They should definitely read through the bills and attempt to understand it. Some of them, I'm not sure if they're mentally capable of understanding some of the things that they put in there. It's quite doubtful. They probably have their handlers to tell them what they're voting on there, and just go from there. But honestly, yes, we should have people that are actually involved, actually read the regulations, understand the impacts of what's going on before they're signing their name to anything out there.
All right. I don't think they're mentally capable either. Great answer. Pat, to you. Should regulations require a net reduction every year?
When you say net reduction, what do you mean?
Like less than last year?
I think we'd be pretty safe if we just threw them all out right now. Understand that, to me, regulations are nothing less than the weaponization of congressional and federal powers. They are intentionally created to cause harm or to create advantages in the economic field of play. Does that make me a cynic? Nope, I'm a realist. Almost all of these regulations that exist were placed specially by people who are looking for economic power. Virtually everything in government exists because people were looking for economic power. Borders exist because whether 200 years ago or 3,000 years ago, somebody decided they wanted to create an enclosed area politically for their own economic power. I think just tell you what, just go Fahrenheit 451 on them, burn the books, just throw them the hell out. And you know what? It'll be just like the impact of the government shutdown for most of us. We won't even realize it. No one would even notice. Did anyone in this audience, I feel badly for some government workers, but anyone in this audience impacted by the government shutdown? I wasn't.
All right. Great answer to close it out on. Enter your scores in the chat if you haven't already. Tell us who you think won. And we're over 10,000 viewers. Please reshare this out so people catch the replay. It was a great show. And let's jump into the chat one last time here. Chris wants to know, Stephen, are you in Alligator Alcatraz? 200 if you are liberating prisoners of war crimes. Points to Pat for the 5150 score. That's the police code for a mental breakdown. Points to me for having Xano as a sponsor. Hashtag privacy. Hashtag agorism. Points to Paul for being an Eagle Scout. Points to Paul for choosing Vice. Points to Paul for looking like he's in a hostage video with an additional 100 if he tells us who's off camera to the right controlling him. Points to Pat, everything the government does is violence. Points to Pat, debt kills economic freedom. Points to Pat, debt service costs nearly as much as the Department of War. Points to Stephen for social credit score. Check out the Black Mirror episode Nosedive. Points to Stephen, CBDC gives the government an individualized off switch for everyone's bank account. Points to Stephen for calling out Palantir. Yes, Xano was the answer there. Correct. Points to Paul. We don't track cash, right? Points to Paul for the answer. Points to Stephen. He talked directly to the agorist in the audience. Points to Pat. He supports Xano. Points to Stephen for being a prior guest in the Swamp Creatures podcast. What's up, Josh? Points to Pat for the Xano shout out. DeFi is the way. Points to Pat for the thank you. Points to Pat. He is almost an agorist. He is so close. Pat, just walk towards the light. Leave the government dark side. -10 to Stephen for catching fire to his cigar while answering. Points to Stephen for streaming from Guatemalan internet cafe. The sound of unmuffled scooters makes me feel nostalgic. Points to Stephen, F the government for spying on ex-girlfriends. Points to Paul, shortest answer. Points to Pat, the cloud is just someone else's computer. Points to Pat, future crime awareness equals future crime arrest before they are committed. Scary. Points to Pat, the police should not be storing data. Come back with a warrant. Points to Stephen, drugs won the war on drugs. Points to Stephen, hashtag team drugs. -100 to Stephen, the 50-year war on drugs, drugs win. Points to Steve, drug abuse is a health issue. David Davis reposted. Thanks for doing that. -100 to Steve, the 50-year war on drugs, drugs won. Wrong, the CIA won and is winning. The government is evil. Points to Paul, hempcrete, it's amazing. Well said and correct. Points to Pat, legal drugs are safe drugs. Points to Pat, cannabis doesn't make anyone paranoid. Criminalization does. Points to Pat, legal drugs are safe drugs. Points to Pat for working with the homeless and supporting pure legal drugs. No one would choose fentanyl if heroin, morphine, or opium were readily available. Points to Pat, see you in Grand Rapids. Points to the chat, everyone here is amazing. Free is okay, I guess. I like him better when he isn't pretending to be the government. Points to Stephen, but I'm a Ford girl. I'm assuming that she means Pat Ford. Points to Pat and Stephen for the free market advocacy. Points to Stephen, give me the Toyota Hilux Champ or give me death. Points to Stephen, or minus to Stephen for the Ford Knox. Points to Steve is correct. Toyota is more reliable and holds its residual value better. This has turned into a car show. Points to Pat for defending Ford. Points to Pat for Larry Sharping. -10 to Stephen for gerrymandering. Minus to Stephen, Raptor has nothing on the TRX. This is something. 200 to Stephen for repealing the Patriot Act. Now we're back on topic. Points to Stephen. I was thinking the same thing about the Patriot Act. Gross. Points to Stephen. Call it unpatriotic. Nathan's here. What's up? -200 to Stephen. The Toyota Hilux is 100 times better than the Raptor. Points to Paul for the privacy online. Points to Paul for screenshot. Nice. Points to Pat. The Republicans are not libertarian. Points to Pat for banning Homeland. Points to Pat because the Constitution doesn't give us rights. Points to Pat, yes, the GOP suckered us into the Patriot Act. -13 to Stephen for being muted. 200 for Stephen for acknowledging that licensing restrictions are a barrier to entry. 100 to Stephen for satisfying the crown. 100 to Stephen, licensing doesn't prove skill. Points to Stephen, let the free market decide. No licensing from the state. Free men don't ask permission. Yes, white, gray, and black markets without licenses. Points to Paul because we don't need nannies. -1 to Stephen. We're not swimming in regulations. We're drowning in them. Points to Pat for being the least statist. Points to Pat, safe to throughout all regulations, intentionally created to harm or help special interest. Points to Pat, and the effing government already. And points to Pat, I would enjoy sharing a meal with this man and talking about real solutions. Wow, that was a lot. Let's jump to the scores one last time. And right at the end, there was a jump in the scores, and Pat wins with 81-70, sneaking past Steve at the last minute with 79-39, and Paul right behind with 74-15. Paul, what did you think tonight?
I think I should have jumped off the chat for a moment, had technical difficulty, and you didn't say anything about nuking people if that was still a thing, because that would have been the obvious answer there. Just be like, I disconnected, need to nuke somebody, come back. I loved being on the show tonight with all the other gentlemen here, and it was great to hear some of the answers that Pat was able to give tonight. It was we don't get to talk about some of these things enough.
Anything you want to plug?
Yes, if you want to see my website for those that are interested in my run for Texas vice chair, because I'm going to be vice chair of like everything at one point here. You can go to paulfortexas.darr.org. And you can find that there. And if you go to my Twitter that was already mentioned earlier, X account there is also a link on there about coming if you're in the Dallas area at all next month. On the night of the 6th, we're going to have a couple great speakers, Dr. Mary Ruert and Mike Surtek, that are going to be out there. And if you'd like to buy a ticket out to the event that evening, that would be great.
Excellent. And here is the X account. It's at Paul_Darr. And he's, of course, the vice chair of the LNC and running for vice chair of everything else. So appreciate you being here, Paul. Thank you. Second place to Stephen. What did you think tonight?
Always a fun time. I appreciate you having me on, and great guests tonight. So had a lot of fun. We're looking forward to doing this again in Florida and seeing it live in Grand Rapids. So that'll be a blast. I had a great time. Some really good questions and good answers. And shout out to the chat. I'll just plug lp.org. If you're watching, you're interested in the Libertarian Party, head over to lp.org, sign up for our newsletter, keep up to tabs on what's going on. And I always encourage people to become a member for $25. You don't have to change your voter registration if you don't want to, but of course I encourage you to, and keep up to date, support the work that the Libertarian Party is doing. We had about 30 candidates elected this past week on an off year, which is really excellent. And we're gearing up for some really big things over the next year for 2026 midterms. And I'm very excited about that. Also the launch of Archimedes 2.0, aka the Parity Project. And you can learn more about that when you sign up for the newsletter, find out how you can support the movement, support the cause, and become a member of the party and get engaged. So thanks again for having me on, Free. I appreciate it as always.
Excellent. And yeah, you can follow Stephen at Stephen Nekhalia on X. And he's, of course, the chair of the party. And you guys are doing an excellent job. I should have said that to Paul, but I want to say that to you as well. You guys are doing an amazing job. And it was really exciting to watch the election results. For once, it was fun to stay up and watch them. So we appreciate that. So Pat, first time on, and you're the big winner. What do you think?
If I can quote one of my spirit animals, Otter in Animal House, this is great. I love this. This was a lot of fun. It was fun. You know what? Everything is so damn serious right now. To have some laughs, people in the Libertarian Party, you are as funny as hell. And this was just great. Had a blast.
Excellent. And you can check out Pat. He's on X at Poe Taxpayer, and he's doing all this great stuff. He's the chair of the convention that's coming up that we'll be at. He's on the oversight committee, and he's the founder of Libertarian Mutual Aid, which is libertarianmutualaid.org, and they accept Xano. So go make a privacy donation there so the government doesn't know where you're sending your money. And appreciate having you on, man. And let's add Terry back up here. Terry, what'd you think tonight?
Just wow. Just these guys are great. You guys are doing a fantastic job. And I don't know if you can see what it says under, but I am the only. So that makes me the only libertarian. Okay.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy.
I finally figured it out. No, I'm kidding. You guys did a great job, chat. You guys are awesome. I absolutely love you guys. And thank you, gentlemen, for working with me. And I'll talk to you later.
Excellent. And you can follow Terry and I on X. I am Freedom for Us for All. She is Bats T76. If you want any of our cool swag, the shirts and the mugs, go to freedomsuperstore.com. Check out the shorts that Terry's putting on YouTube. We're at Freedom Uncut over on YouTube. Thanks again to Xano. Your privacy matters. Choose Xano, the leading blockchain platform that prioritizes confidentiality and security. And a great place to start learning about it is intro.xano.org. And we're going to be on the road. We're going to be in Georgia in January, Florida in February, North Carolina in March, Texas in April. And of course, the big shebang is in May. We will be at the Libertarian National Convention. So really looking forward to that. thank you to our subscribers. You can subscribe to us on X if you want to help support the show. And if you want to sponsor the show, shoot us an email at studio@freedomuncut.com. And again, this was a lot of fun. I like all three of you guys personally, and you guys are just such smart people. So proud to have you out there as spokespeople for the party and doing such incredible work, and being on the cutting edge of the issues that are out there and getting the word out, when we're about to bomb Venezuela or whatever the next thing is. I love that you guys are out there, shouting from the rooftops immediately and telling people, why this is absolute insanity. So really appreciate you. And thanks for coming on, and thanks for the multiple appearances from you guys. Really appreciate the support. And hopefully we're helping you guys and getting the word out as well. So,
well, thanks for all
really
you guys doing. We appreciate the lighthearted, fun angle, educating, and also entertaining. So I think it's a great market niche you guys have captured, and wish you the best of continued success.
And if I could go on the record, I heard all those great places you're going, the national convention. I want to invite you to join us. Truly, the Christians in the Libertarian Coliseum in Rhode Island. The door's open. Let's talk.
All right. Yeah, let's talk about it. Love Rhode Island. And I want to say this for the record. I'm trying to be serious. I don't know why everybody keeps saying that this is funny and entertaining. Like, this is as serious as I get. So, but I appreciate all the compliments and all the support from you guys and from the party. It's been awesome. So, yeah. And thanks to everybody in the chat. You guys made this so much fun. Love hearing your opinions. Love the funny comments. Some of the things are, kind of mean, but that's okay. And no, but we appreciate y'all and hope you learned something. Please repost this out again. Over 11,000 viewed this live. Let's get a bunch of people to watch the replay as well and learn from these guys. And we will see you Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. Appreciate y'all. Have a good night and be safe.